making a video, alright, so I was sort of looking for physics stuff and ended up doing this, I don't know, Sam Harris thing and looking about an artificial intelligence and whatnot, so I figured it was worth a conversation. Just because it doesn't, oh, there's so many angles, and that's the thing. So first off, there's this idea of even defining what artificial intelligence is, and this whole idea of it somehow being smarter, whatever smart is, and that we somehow need more brain to be smart, and that doesn't sound quite right. I think it's better use of brain rather than more brain. And knowing what the right answer to the reasonable question is, just this whole understanding the game we're playing and understanding whether it's a game worth playing, I don't think takes a lot of intelligence. I don't think it takes a lot of intelligence to figure out what the ball is and to be able to follow it, so to speak. Don't think that requires, don't need computers to answer those questions for you, the worth questions. And they're the only questions that really matter. The rest of it is bullshit. The rest of it's inevitable progress, blah, blah, blah. But totally ignored in the conversation is all the little steps required to get there and how impossible it is to survive those. So I could just say, for any threat that we're going to ever get to artificial intelligence, long before we get there, we're going to have things called smart bullets. We're going to have droney pods, right? iPods with little legs that'll go kill your neighbor. You just go kill the fucker. I'm sick of him. Dispose of the body and do. They're going to be able to do whatever the fuck we want them to do in some kind of perfectly trolly manner in this, no traces, no fingerprints, blah blah kind of way. And I'm saying this in the sense that, right, so I did notice that Sam Harris has this, I'm going to be jumping around a lot, so you're going to have to just deal with that. He has his own channel, and he has these very well-produced kind of podcasty talks and things. And, he doesn't get a lot of views, though. It's less than the drunken peasants, less than, now I would argue that, I don't like everything Sam Harris says, but compared to most, he's reasonable most of the time, kind of a thing. Kind of thoughtful and little dry and stale sometimes, but a thinking man, if that can be stated. And yeah, not much views. And ironically, there's more views for this particular video because this guy retitled it. So this Ham Ferris guy retitles his video, puts it up, and gets 25,000 views out of it, and just kind of tacky, And then in the comments, there's a guy called Robert Norman Ross, pretending to be using Bob Ross's image, a dead guy. I mean, it's just the kind of crap we say is okay. Just indicates that we're never going to have the discipline to control any kind of technology in any kind of manner that would prevent exactly what I'm saying, which is, nanobot wars and, just insidious uses of technology that are going to be far short of anything called artificial intelligence. They're just going to be smart enough to kill you, in some sneaky way. Drones, and that drone war isn't going to need to be like a Star Wars version of drone war. It's going to be bowling balls with a little CPU in it, and it's going to roll off buildings and land on your head. It's not going to be. It's going to be the magic 8-ball. It's not going to be a brilliant application of just incredible technology. It's just going to be a little bit of technology tied to something really dangerous, like a bucket of acid. And so it's going to be a scheming bucket of acid. It's just we're never going to get there. So just no point in having a conversation because you can't make any story up that'll get you there. So all this threat that somehow the AI won't be appreciative of what we are, and so so I didn't listen. There's just enough in just 4 minutes of this crap, and you sit there and say, well, I got all kinds of thoughts, provoked all kinds of thinking. And this Degrassi Tyson guy is just so damn annoying. It took 4 minutes to premise his question, and in the processing of making his point, which is just stupid, the little subject, the side subject of the how genetically related we are to chimpanzees or gorillas. And so Sam Harris was very, well, he's a brain scientist guy, so he should have some knowledge about this kind of stuff. But he had this stuff right in his, right there in the top of his head. And so, in my opinion, he did kind of, he wasn't prepared. I mean, he's not using the argument, and he seemed to be more knowledgeable on the subject, which was interesting. So yes, we're more related to the chimpanzee than the gorilla, and technically we're closer to the chimpanzee than the chimpanzee is to the gorilla, which is sort of the surprising one. Then Sam Harris came out with the other zinger that we are closer to chimpanzees than rats are to mice. Interesting also. But anyway, so the context is Degrassi Tyson is trying to create this artificial intelligence idea, this alien idea that would find us so inferior, like we're dumb monkeys or something compared to them because they can do calculus or something. And I've heard this stupid argument before, that somehow it's impressive that Stephen Hawking can do, integrals in his head or something. Well, he doesn't have much choice in the first place, so yes, it's impressive that he's even breathing. And obviously, yes, he has to do everything in his fucking head pretty much, because that's all he's got. But look how little value we place on any of that shit anyway, right? I mean, it's we celebrate people who have gold medals and baseball stats and hit enough home runs and that kind of so much more celebrated as a valuable human being, or all that kind of crap. And people who inherit a lot of money, we automatically give them a great deal of respect because they inherited a big pile of money. So I mean, it's really a hard argument to make that there's some sort of intelligence at all in human beings, let alone a mockable intelligence, because maybe even gorillas wouldn't fall for that. If they had the opportunity, they might be smart enough to say, gee, that's embarrassing. Look, they're revering people who can't even beat their chest. I mean, shit. They got no standards of integrity. Anyway, so yeah, so you just start thinking. You bring up the subject. You start thinking, well, what would the differences be in terms of genetic code? You always use this genetic code, percent of genetic code. And it's just, you automatically start thinking a little, and you say, well, wait, the real problem with genetic code is you got to understand that genetic code is, whatever you have is, a billion years old, technically. I mean, it goes all the way back to the beginning, whether you like it or not, that's where it actually goes. And yes, there's been all kinds of mixing and disposal of pieces and additions of pieces and all that kind of stuff through this evolution process, but there's no point in talking about a percentage really of change, because it's a percentage of something over 1 billion years of volume. So obviously, millions of years can look like a tiny percentage of code. So it really doesn't say much about how close you are by saying, well, we're 99% the same genetic code. Yeah, well, technically you should expect that, because for hundreds of millions of years we were the same organism. We had the same ancestors for hundreds of millions of years, and it's only for the last 10 million years maybe that we diverged. So obviously 100 to 10 would be a ratio of 99 to 1. So yeah, it's not a surprise that there's only 1% difference. So it's just so a little bit of thinking, you think of that, you say, okay, so let's call that intelligence, is having knowledge of these little connections, these little things, these little elements. And so the other thought came to head was, well, what creates this change? And then you think about how things evolve and say, oh, okay, well, how fast you breed matters. So the difference between rats and mice might be, how quickly they reproduce. and the difference between gorillas and chimpanzees might be, well, chimpanzees they're more adaptable. Gorillas are sort of dependent on certain kinds of leaves and certain kinds of trees, and they don't do much moving around. So the mountain gorillas kind of stay in the mountain, and the lowland gorillas kind of stay in the lowlands, but they don't go spreading all over the place. They're not movers and shakers. And this kind of stalls your genetic evolution in the sense that for your genetics to evolve, it's going to take some of this punctuated equilibrium kind of bullshit. You have to move out of where you are, get away from the massive genetic code that will wipe out any innovation. And that's kind of what happens in herd animals, especially. It's a little hard to evolve when you're part of a million troop of something, because any change, they all have brown eyes, you get blue eyes. Your blue eyes are going to get wiped out pretty fast by all the brown eye influence, and so it's not going to last too long, any kind of deviation. Whereas when human beings first showed up in North America, it's kind of argued that there might have been just 7 females. All the American Indian tribes were all descendant from just 7 females. So you have lots of room for a rapid change, because you have some inbreeding first, and you have isolation from some dampening force that's going to take you back. Okay, it's going to keep dragging you back to the standard code. So yes, there's lots of opportunity for change. And so this is a huge factor when you think about human beings, because even more, like I said, first you can see that chimpanzees are obviously more mobile, more adaptable. They can eat more things. They can live in different environments, and they're more likely to spread outward more effectively. And then humans just make that they're ridiculous. It's almost like they're almost like electrons or something. It's like they just can't stand each other. It's like as soon as they're born, they're running away, in terms of the way they spread and the way they, just shot out of Africa, and they did it twice, and so it was obviously a piece of their structure said go west or go north or go south, young man. But there's definitely some kind of element inside of this human organism, even in Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, whatever, that was highly motivated to do this more territory thing. It might not be just motivation. It just might be the fact that we adapted to this carnivorous lifestyle, capable of eating a variety of things, more variety, especially on the coastal areas. There's lots of opportunities to eat snails and shit that's in the water, that's grabbable, without being a great swimmer, and that much of the migration does seem to be coastal, so that sort of goes together. So I'm just saying, so here's some more thoughts. You just have more and more thoughts to contextualize a subject. And yes, it would be great to have intelligence that could do all that context stuff, rip through it really quickly, and that would be very powerful as an aid to understanding, but it's still not going to answer any of the really important questions. It's this idea of what intelligence is. Intelligence is understanding what the game is, and the moves are. I suppose you could compare it to a chess thing and figure out the most efficient way to capture the queen. But you're really talking about is what's the most efficient way to just end the need to play the game. Is another way of looking at the intelligence question, or what's the most efficient way to create this thing that's supposed to have value, which is this perception of accomplishment, this striving and winning, whatever the peak human experience is in terms of acquisition, like winning the lottery. Or I could argue from my own selfish perspective, the peak thing is this: oh yes, do the Nobel Prize thing, prove that you're a meritorious human being, that all these assholes ridiculing you and pissing on you over the years are all cunts, and you can now deservedly piss back on their little fucking bald heads and give them what they deserve. And that'd be great satisfaction and gratification in this moment of realization that you won the war. You you spent your time in the trenches, you evaded the getting killed, you had some trench foot, some miseries, but you endeavored to persevere, you persevere, good feeling. You polish your little metal and then you move on because you don't have much choice. You got to take on the next challenge, so to speak, or use the new power you've gained in some sort of constructive way and apply your intelligence to now saying there's other problems I can fix besides this silly one, something like that. So you gain give this intelligence thing some sort of power. All right. So I guess my critique is, much like I when he wrote the Moral Landscape book, nice book, good stuff. The Free Will book, good. Most of that's good stuff. But the Moral Landscape, I remember the word that just bugged the fuck out of me was this stupid thrive word. So this is another one of these subjects where it's dependent on what you think of this word intelligence. What the fuck does that mean? And, the idea of a thrive is just such a gooey, silly word. I've made a lot of videos talking about this thing of what value does your happiness really have when really what you're trying to maximize if you're smart. So if you did have this intelligence thing, what you're trying to do is maximize your capacity to play the game, to, if the game is make checkers happy, then how many checkers did you make happy? That kind of thing. If the happiness and comfort and satisfaction and gratification is the thing we're going to declare as a value, that's the intelligence saying, look, this has value. This idea of somebody feeling worthy, feeling accomplished, feeling the satisfaction of a humping well done, whatever it would be. Just this idea of obtaining a goal, realizing a valid ambition. That yes, you'd want to be able to provide that. It didn't have to be in you. It could be in any vessel that possesses the capacity to feel this thing. That would be the intelligent way to see it. You would realize that the feeling part of your brain, the welfare thing, the thing that needs to thrive, that thing is not very, it has no personal meaning in a sense. It has no, just because I have my brain, my thinking brain just happens to be feeding off this individual parasite, this individual tick, I can sort of understand that all the other ticks are just as important. All the other bugs have the same value as this bug. And my thinking device should be able to do that quite easily. As a piece of intelligence, that should be one of these intelligent thoughts. Okay, if there is such a thing as thriving, it doesn't matter who does it. It just matters that it gets done, that it happens, this thriving thing happens. And that's where I find a certain amount of carts before the horse, or some other kind of wrong way of looking at this idea of what intelligence is. Intelligence is identifying what's valuable. I mean, that's got to be the first definition of the mark of it. If you can't, and that question doesn't require a huge amount of knowledge. It requires not being full of shit. I mean, not nonsense and gibberish and, all this, selfishness works idea or some other kind of crap that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you are a animated object moving through the world, and the consequence is stuff will feel good or stuff will feel bad based on whether you just stepped on it or not, whether you ran it over with your fucking car. I mean, that's the reality. What are you consuming when you're consuming? Everything you possess had to be made by some person sitting there doing some tedious work and being irritable and having a headache and a migraine, and but he's got to pay his rent on his cot, for his peach a day or some kind of crap like that, some kind of horror. Limbs sawed off, all kinds of terrible, awful things happen to people so you can have your stupid stuff, your crap. That's intelligence is recognizing this isn't nothing you experience is free. it's all extracted from an environment, and the complexity of that extraction we can concede is huge, and that would be great to have a little intelligent computer that could actually do my my carbon footprint thing in some sort of real way, you know, my suffering footprint, my blood footprint. Tell me what my blood footprint is. It'd be really nice to have a little computer do that. Tell you what's right and wrong in terms of how bloody your different choices are. You know, if I'm going to go skydiving, and then, you know, you could punch that into the blood footprint, and it would add up the wasted fuel and the you know, the risk of all the things that could happen, the fact that you're wasting human intelligence on some sort of nonsense for a stupid little joy fly ride down to the earth, and you know, with in a parachute that somebody had to fold, and you could add, you know, could add up all the crap of it and just say, well, is this any better than you know, sticking chopsticks in my ass? And it might tell you that no, it's better that you would spend the next 10 minutes shoving chopsticks in your ass than going skydiving or something like that. So yes, that kind of intelligence would be useful to understand how exactly wasteful or nonsensical is some stupid ambition or some stupid fucking movie they spent $500 million to make or something. And you'd say, well, you know, you could punch the movie in and find out what's the blood footprint of that piece of shit. You know, what could have been done with the resources squandered on that big preposterous pile of crap. You know, that kind of thing. So yes, that's where this intelligence thing could become useful. But that's not going to be the application. That's not going to be what scheming little idiotic brains are going to do with it. You know, they're going to get $400 suits, and you know, this is going to be the application. So anyway, I figure, since I'm here doing this stuff, so anyway, just an idea of what is the nature of intelligence, and I just don't think they really have. They got to first have a conversation about what the nature of intelligence is, because if they think intelligence is being able to do calculus in your head, I don't think they get it. You know, I don't think that's a reasonable or sensible. That's gymnastics. You know, that's not a, you know, that's not a definition of what I think intelligence should mean. Intelligence should be more connected to a word called wisdom, or relevant knowledge, even some other word, artificial relevant knowledge processing. You know, so some more specific, getting to the real point of it, seeing through the bullshit, a clear lens with which to examine ourselves, a reflexive microscope. That's intelligence. Intelligence is being able to get to the nature, the essence of the thing, and clearly the value thing is the only really relevant part. And the only way something else can have value is it has to be because it affects the value component. So even all these applications of artificial aids to the processing of environments can only be just like a chainsaw. You know, you use them for good, use them for bad. I mean, they're just going to be tools to some overriding purpose established by some other kind of data processing relevant to what is the actual goal here, what is accomplished here, what is a valid and sensible blood footprint profile. Can this be molded, this sensibility machine, this I need? Can a need machine ever be sensibly defended as something you make? I don't think so. Intelligently, through any kind of logic processing. Do you need a pile of bullshit to make that sensible? So these aren't going to be artificial intelligence. If it's going to be caught up in that game, is going to be artificial bullshit. It's not going to be artificial intelligence. It's going to be artificial nonsense, silly goal, silly ambition, silly purpose, silly prime directive. Yeah. So anyway, so we got 4 minutes of Degrassi Tyson blah 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 blah, just saying basically, what if smart aliens come here and they think we're really stupid? Well, does that mean the smart aliens don't know what a feeling thing is? I mean, maybe they're as dumb as you and are still eating meat. Okay, so yeah, maybe they're retarded, but then they wouldn't be intelligent, would they? Right. They certainly wouldn't be more intelligent. So, I mean, this whole argument like, oh, they're dumb chimpanzees. Well, no, you're a dumb chimpanzee if you're still unnecessarily torturing animals for a silly thing called a satisfying meal. Then you're a dumb animal, not intelligent.
They would not view us as intelligent. And that's a little scary to me, because we do not communicate in any important fundamental way with any other species on Earth, even those that are close, even those that we might...
Well, again, we communicate with our pets every day, so, I mean, it's very significant communication. Yes, we don't do calculus together. Me and the cat don't do calculus. But every day we communicate. I communicate, we rub heads, actually. But I'm just saying, people obviously have very tight relationships with their dogs, and if chimpanzees were more amenable to not being hysterical or overreacting or ripping your arm off every now and then and beating you to death with it, eating your face or some other kind of thing, I'm sure we would have a very tight relationship, a very involved relationship. But it's just that there's enough of a difference to be too much of a difference. We don't have a structure to make that possible, to do all that interacting, but there's lots of interacting to do, as Amy Goodwin or whatever demonstrated. The women who have lived with the minkies, they clearly demonstrated a tremendous amount of communication in a real meaningful way, touchy, feely, deep way. And yes, it wasn't mathematical or complicated, but it was rich communication. I know that sounds a little mushy in mendom, but you know what I mean. Yes, it's very sweet.
Rate as intelligent for them, for themselves, right? And so we can't communicate with other animals on our own planet with whom we have DNA in common. And now we want this. This is
DNA in common. Like I said, we have DNA in common with bugs and fish and all the crap on Earth. So again, that doesn't mean too much. And again, the complexity of how our DNA diverges, in the sense is that it can be a very tiny difference that makes a huge difference. And I'd sort of argue that that's what took place with humans and their intelligence. Humans 50,000 years ago weren't behaving much more intelligently than a chimpanzee. So, instead of just doing the termite thing, we were doing the fire stick thing and the bash it with a rock thing, but we weren't doing much better than that. So, but clearly we had a brain that could do much better than that. So the change was some other kind of little change that made us be able to do a little better than do a few little more complex things. But the real secret was it opened the door to this language thing, and it was the language thing that changed everything. So we sacrificed maybe a little bit of our sense of smell and maybe a little bit of our sense of hearing, and in exchange for those senses we gained a little bit more data storage, and that way we could memorize a sequence of sounds and make them represent something like, God, my wife's a bitch, or something like that.
Addressing SETI again. Now we claim we can communicate with another species, another alien species.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, what do you think the alien species has been doing if they haven't been evolving just like us? And to acquire intelligence, it seems they would have to have some sort of value engine also. They'd have to have some kind of drama to give them motivation to acquire the capacity to do all this stuff. So they would probably have, in many ways, even to acquire language and any kind of intelligence, they would have had to have gone through some of the same hoop jumping that we went through as organisms. You know, there are these kind of parallels, right? I mean, the marsupials had a chain of command, you know, predator-prey relationships where some of the organisms turned out very similar. Okay, you know, like kangaroos are like giant rats. They had marsupial tigers, you know, that kind of thing. Everything just had its, you know, had played the same role, and so there was the same kind of evolutionary pressure to create something that could do these certain things. And yes, it seems thin that there wasn't any evolutionary pressure that created higher intelligence, because it doesn't have any real lasting value. And as we're going to prove with our own nanobot destruction, that all of this is going to be moot. In terms of, we will degrade ourselves and turn ourselves into just nothing but calculating bugs again. Because we'll have to reduce, our ambitions are going to become so unintelligent and so selfish and self-preservational that the only way you could possibly find a justification for not shooting or blowing your own brains out would be you'd have to have some kind of silly notion of purpose in you blowing out somebody else's and all that crap. So you're going to have to get very stupid to survive in the future. And aliens would have to survive these same obstacles, and it would seem there would be no doubt that they would have some appreciation for the dilemma of being a sentient organism, of being something that can acquire knowledge of good and evil, and the huge responsibility that carries, and just recognizing that every step they take will, you know, decide the destiny of things in all kinds of horrible ways, and make all kinds of horrible decisions that they don't intend, will cause harm they don't intend to create, will have implications they don't intend to have be the implications. I think they're going to be struck by some of that humility, and that, you know, at worst, the aliens are going to be talking like Carl Sagan. They're really not going to be talking like Donald Trump.
And our greatest of thoughts will be something that they'll even recognize as a great thought. The audacity of us.
No, so he's claiming that's kind of an expression of some sort of audacity on our part to give aliens, okay, some sort of sensible intelligence where they can actually value things that are capable of feeling, that they wouldn't be running over cats on their way to Earth. You know, that they wouldn't be some sort of insensitive moron like us. So he's almost equating intelligence with nothing but a bug brain, a scheming, invidious, insidiously myopic, closed-minded, stupid, ignorant thing like us. And that's intelligence. So again, he just doesn't even, you can't think better than that. We have failed at separating ourselves from the insects. We haven't celebrated the idea. I would just imagine if Alexandria or some previous civilization where knowledge was valued, where understanding the mechanism of our psychology and the difficulty of marching through life, these humble people, rather than these arrogant religious kooks, were the ones that actually decided the evolution of human culture, that it would be a very different culture, and that we wouldn't find it at all strange to think of aliens as being smart, that there would be an association, a decidedly strong connection between intelligence and empathy, and something called understanding, a capacity to appreciate complexity and difficulty. That this kind of, the idea of the arrogant alien is almost oxymoronic, in the sense that there's very little chance that arrogance, Donald Trump's, would ever survive nuclear bullets.
So it leaves me awake at night wondering what of this universe will forever lay beyond our reach, simply because our species is too stupid.
Well, again, this idea that there's something beyond our reach because of our stupidity, when you're a physicist and you know it's beyond our reach because guess what? Physics. Okay, physics makes it beyond our reach. You can't send complexity through the universe in any kind of survivable package. It just doesn't work that way. The physics won't let that happen. The physics doesn't really like. The rest of the physics of the universe, the reason why it looks stupid and simple is because it's grinding up anything complex. It doesn't like complexity. It looks simple, it stays simple, it does it for billions of years that way. It just eradicates anything that goes outside of this very crude chemistry, very crude physical reality of just melt it, reform it, melt it, reform it, melt it, reform it. That's what the universe does. That's the engine the universe is. And it's only the aberrations that are what we are. And there's no expectation that we have, through intelligence, are going to be able to sit there and manipulate those hard physics and somehow send our complexity across the universe in any practical way.
Well, so then the flip side of that, this is another topic, but it's quite related, is...
Okay, so ironic, like I said, 5 minutes. It took 5 minutes for deGrasse Tyson to ask kind of a stupid question. Do you think aliens will be as dumb as Donald Trump supporters? And so Sam Harris just ignores the question. It's just like, well, that question's so fucking dumb. Sorry, I'm going to try to be intelligent instead.
Development in artificial intelligence, where I have joined the chorus of people who are worried about this for precisely the reasons you just gave. I think that if we continue to build intelligent machines, at a certain point, if we don't destroy ourselves in the meantime, we will get into the end zone where we have built something that is super intelligent and far better placed than we are to design the next iteration of itself. And
yeah, again, but it's kind of silly to say it's going to have any visceral motivational need to do any of that. Where exactly would it get the program? Unless you create the actual Terminator. I mean, unless if you create robots that their intention is to be good soldiers and kill, and then you don't keep them in some kind of cage. Well, yeah, you kind of got to get what you're going to deserve, right? I mean, that's like raising anthrax or something. You're going to play with a disease that could get loose. Well, then you're going to get exactly what you deserve. The disease gets loose and it'll kill you. But it won't be because it's intelligent. It will be because exactly the opposite. Because you gave it enough intelligence to kill, but not enough intelligence to realize there's bad ways to do that.
This is both hardware and software innovation, but I think ultimately software.
Well, see, I mean, even that argument that's in software, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the hardware will be the game, and once you make these little bricklets, that go inside somebody's brain and just smash all your cells to pieces, the little nano shit is just that hardware is just gonna be, you're never gonna survive that. So once you go smart enough to make little tiny things, the little tiny things will be made into insidiously monstrous little bots, and you're fucked. Because even if they can't reproduce, they'll live a long time, and they don't get bored. They don't, they can just sit there in a crack in the sidewalk and just wait, 15 years for Donald Trump to walk by. They don't care. What's 15 years to them? Nothing. Who cares?
We're going to have a super intelligent machine. Whether we can leave consciousness aside, maybe there's nothing that it's like to be this machine. The lights might be off, but it's still intelligent in the sense that it's far more competent than we are in any area in which intelligence applies.
Right. So in any area, you just said in any area. Now, does that make any sense? I mean, it quite obviously can't be as knowledgeable as us in the area of what it's like to be a sentient organism, what it's like to feel like shit, what it's like to feel the glorious wonder of winning the lottery, it can't do any of that. It can't appreciate any of that, and that's like whatever. That's a huge percentage of the application of our intelligence is just like I've keep stating, is the very idea of maximizing this glorious sensation of the ecstasy versus the agony, the ecstasy of of these perfect moments, this splendor in the grass. It'll have no conception of it. You know, how could it be anything close to anything we would call intelligent when it has no knowledge of good and evil, no knowledge of the visceral nature of it?
You know, the best chess player in the world is a computer now and will always be. And just imagine 1,000 other intelligent functions.
Yeah, well, again, you could just imagine the fact of the computer that can play the chess so well. It doesn't matter what program you give it. Play Chinese checkers, in the sense of play the Chinese. Give me a scenario. We could give it to Big Blue, and we could give it the scenario. Give me a scenario where we can provoke a nuclear war between China and Russia, because that's to our advantage. Or something like that. Give me the scenario. What magic words do I say? What kind of little stupid move can we Americans make? We'll put it into the computer and it'll give us just this little stupid maneuver we can do, and it will precipitate a chain reaction that causes China to nuke Russia. But what would that have to do with this idea of intelligence? That's just, again, a tool for manipulating checkers in some narrow, small-minded way, not in any kind of contextual understanding kind of way. It's not understanding the game, it's just running the routine of, I'm the bishop, I move diagonally, I can figure out angles for 400 moves ahead of time, moving diagonally. I mean, it just doesn't have anything to do with anything I think the word intelligence should be reserved for.
Being expressed by a machine that is getting better by the minute at all of them because of making changes to its own code. I think you have said that you're not worried about
You're not in the
AI.
least. No.
Okay.
Bring it on.
So I want to hear why, but it seems to me that we are going to build the thing that will look back upon us, whether or not it's conscious, as being basically it will have gone past the cognitive horizon.
Yeah, well, whatever. Again, so this ego thing coming up, and somehow it's sitting there going, oh yeah, I'm much smarter, so I'm much better, and blah blah blah, and it's going to do this kind of stupid competition construct thing, like somehow somebody programmed asshole into it. So yeah, we're going to make the smartest iPod ever, and we're going to give it the motivations of Homer Simpson. I just don't see that as a rational calculation. Again, creating machines that will do insidiously stupid things, yes, I see that happening all over the fucking place. But creating some sort of artificial intelligence that remains profoundly stupid, that just doesn't make any sense.
That we can cross. I mean, some people are hopeful that we can cross it by combining ourselves with this AI. This AI is going to be grafted onto our core.
Yeah, well, that's just even silly. No, we would be grafted onto the AI, so it's another limitation of people's visions. Like, actually thinks there'd be some, we just patch it in and then we have a cord, an extension cord or something. It's just kind of silly. No, you just fucking, if you're going to bother immersing, yeah, you immerse all the way, because then you don't have to pay for anything. I don't got to pay for the house. I don't got to pay the rent. I don't have to heat the house. I don't do anything. You just put me in a little bubbly thing, keep my little brain alive, much cheaper. And I don't have to have any physical production whatsoever. You just minimize all the production costs and make all of the synthetic perception synthetic. You just make a fake desk and a fake computer and a fake everything. Just so much cheaper. The fake ones are really cheap.
Vortices, and we're essentially going to become its limbic system, and therefore it won't diverge from our interests. But I can imagine if we don't do that, or even if we do, it's still going to be possible to build this AI separate in a box and not grafted onto any human value system. And then you have the prospect of even the subtlest misalignment between its interests and goals and our own.
Yes, well, I don't even know what this misalignment would be of its interest and goals. Again, what would be its interest and goals besides the program you gave it? So again, if you make a robotic Terminator to kill your enemy, then yes, you have to be a little bit careful about the fact that you don't want to make it so that all that has to happen is one little circuit goes boop, and all of a sudden it sees you as the guy it's supposed to kill. So yeah, you're going to have to build in a little bit of a protection, because it's going to be profiling, and You don't want its profile program to be, you know, you don't want any chads on the ballot. You know, you don't want any doubt about who it's supposed to be the target. So yeah, if you do it poorly, yeah, you get blown up by your own bomb. That won't be a new concept. That's happened millions of times in human history. So yeah, the fact that we're going to blow off our own face to spite our enemy, yeah, that'll happen.
Being expressed as complete obliviousness to our interests in the same way that we are oblivious to the interests of ants or anything else.
Well, again, we're not oblivious to them. Any thinking, sensible person isn't. So anybody who has any respect at all for the function of a brain and the fact that it can be tortured and tormented and have a bad day, anybody has real knowledge of that and hasn't eviscerated it with some sort of dogmatic religious fucktardery, isn't going to have any problem saying it matters. Now, whether it matters enough for them to change or modify their selfish program that's running and actually do anything about anything or try to lament any of it or do something, yeah, well, that's another subject. But recognizing it isn't difficult. Recognizing that, well, shit, it's better if the thing doesn't feel if I'm stepping on it, for fuck's sake. That's kind of goddamn 2 + 2 math. You don't have to be smart at all to figure that out. Only a fucking Mangala retard would say, yes, give it feelings because the torture makes it more slippery and more fun. Only an asshole says something that retarded. Amazing atheist or something.
That is cognitively closed to what we're doing here.
So, all right, here's why I'm not worried. That fear factor is, it presumes something that will happen that's on a path that we're not currently on. So a computer has already beaten us at chess, a game that we invented. The computer has beaten us at Jeopardy, a game that we invented. A computer, I think, recently has beaten us at Go.
Right, but we're talking about computers that would beat us as something like war. We're talking about computers having an ability to do something that's a little more in your face, a little more, you take more responsibility, like making your food for you or some other kind of thing where any subtle mistake, any subtle change in the agenda, but you can't really apply game playing, okay, to agenda, and you certainly can't apply it to things that actually you're dependent on, like making the building out of reliable steel or something. You know, once the computers are doing things like where they're making calculations about the cost effectiveness of, you know, using, you know, Chinese nylon in your safety belt or something, or, you know, putting some sort of poisonous gas in your fucking airbag. Yeah, so it's one thing to talk about it when it's it's smarter than us thing is limited to some area where it wouldn't even matter if it totally fucked up, because what's it going to do? Knock the chessboard over? I mean, it just doesn't have any power. Give it power. Give it the ability to kill you. And then come back to me about how there's nothing to worry about.
A game that we invented. Computers make better cars than we make. I'm old enough, maybe you're just old enough to remember that each day in the morning there was a slight chance your car might not start. That is no longer the case. I'm watching a film with my 14-year-old son, and there's a chase scene happening. The guy jumps into a car. This is a movie from the 60s.
Well, again, that's more bullshit, right? We know that there's recalls every year because some fundamental part of a car isn't right, okay? Because they didn't figure it out ahead of time. Your fucking cell phone's blowing up in people's, you know, houses, burning their houses down. There's lots of flaws and errors built into this stuff, and the more you get the fake shit, the stuff that doesn't have the same agenda as you or the priorities as you, creating the substance of your life, well, it can make miscalculations in terms of values once you're not in control of that equation. You're not the one deciding what's valuable anymore. It has the agenda and the power. And you know, it's foreseeable that you almost at some point you would give these machines power, because humans are so bad at having power, and that the only way to fix our inability to tolerate each other would be to agree that we'll let the third party independent machines control the referees. because we would be incapable of finding any compromise that would be suitable. So that scenario isn't that unrealistic. I mean, they made a movie out of that little robot, Tutum Octu Poo Poo, whatever the fuck it said. You know, yeah, the robots had the bombs, and you know, we had to conduct ourselves in a certain way, and if we violated those rules of conduct, the program was fuck you. You know, I burn your face off. Anyway, I'm running out of time, and so we'll have to. Maybe we'll do this again someday and get back to this subject, but there's just about 9 million obstacles to artificial intelligence anyway. Like I said, to get to artificial intelligence, to get to this really super powerful blah 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 technology, you have to go through all of these incredibly impossible scenarios of way too much individual power thing. Like I said, smart bullets, smart, you know, piles of dog do, you know, all kinds of monstrously dangerous things have to be survived, and that doesn't seem like there's any prospect that that would happen. No. I mean, we don't like each other, and we can keep saying we do, and we really don't. And, you know, just, we're human nature sucks, as people are demonstrating. It doesn't seem like there's much prospect. It's only a very few percentage of the average of the litters that rise above the bug nature. Enough said. Until next time.